Hello and welcome to Working with MUSE. We want to build our first one-page website using anchors. I'm going to try to keep it very focused so that we can accomplish that without too much trouble. We want to take the approach to working with MUSE in stages, and definitely working around a page should precede working within a site combination of pages. And so let's get started. Now what I've done is I've made a folder right here for my, I'm going to call it the anchor site, the site that I wish to build. So I want to make sure I put my site file in there. I like preparing a folder prior to a project. You can do it in the software with the new folder button when you save out your site. But I like to have all that sort of thing done ahead of time. It forces me to think, to be organized. If I highlight the name, you notice that none of the characters in that name are actually uppercase. They're all lowercase. I'm not even using a space. When you work on projects that are aiming toward the web, we want to use web-safe naming conventions. And one of the rules is to not use uppercase characters. Also, spaces can cause troubles on a lot of older browsers. And those swear characters are a real big deal. The characters that I'm referring to are like the symbols that you're going to see on the screen here. Actually, I'm not getting them to come up. The @ symbol, the pound symbol, the $, percentage, all the ones when you use that are above the numbers, those swear characters, you can see them highlighting across there, but I'm not going to do that. Go back to my anchor site. Alright, so let's jump to MUSE and get started with our first site design. MUSE loads on the dock down there. In the file menu, we can go and make a new site. Notice across the file menu there's the typical type commands. There's the copy paste, world of edit, there's page specific commands, there's an object pull down menu. There's also how we view our documents with rulers and plan modes. These are also buttons. There's also a window where all the functions that we go to put into our website will be found. And so this is where we can do our alignments. This is where we can add styles. This is where we can transform. We even have a library full of widgets that we'll be getting into down the line. That's very cool. And so this is where all that function comes. MUSE also has one of these application frames. I'm just going to turn that off really quick, and you can see the box around the back of the program has disappeared. I'm going to leave that on for now so we can see a little more thoroughly what we're up to. Let's just get started really fast. I'm going to make a new site. I'm going to leave the default numbers in there, so all these numbers that come up by default, just leave them in there. We're going to keep a sticky footer. The 500 page height is actually pretty good for one of your topics. So let's say I have 5 topics. What I would do is maybe go in here and change that to 2500, because again we're going to be anchoring to these different positions within that page, so we're definitely going to have a longer site. A dozen is probably going to be kind of ridiculous, so you're going to have to trim this number down. Instead of maybe 500 pixels for each, you might go with a design that features 3 or 350. There's all kinds of adjustment that can be made afterward as well. But I'm going to go ahead and start with the 2500 and aim for 5. Go ahead and click OK on this, bring it up. When we're in MUSE really quickly, you can see the application frame now has stuck our toolbar. Our toolbar we'll get to when we get to the design mode. It's not too rich with tools. We also have across the top, right now we're in plan mode. You can see the modes, the view modes over here. The plan mode really shows us page by page what's going on in our website. This first project, I only want one page in the website, so to speak. And then a master page down here is often where menus and items, that footers and headers, items that we want to see appearing on a category of pages. So common elements go into the master page, and the most common element you might put there is a footer or a header. Footers at the bottom, a header at the top. We also have controls for setting that. Speaking of control, we're going to target a desktop for this first one, but we also have the controls to push out to a tablet. It's slightly smaller, obviously, but has higher resolution options, and then a phone. And so one nice thing that I really appreciate with MUSE is that we're able to go after that mobile marketplace with our design. All right, let's get going. Let's start building some anchors. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the design mode, and on that first page, the home page, you can see I've got 2,500 pixels going on down here. These marks, you can hover over them, will tell you where the top of your page is, as well as things like the header end and the footer end. Let's go down here. Here's the top of our footer. Here is bottom of the page. And we had it at 25. We'll just keep it in that. All of this, and this is the bottom of the browser. So we have all kinds of control over these settings right here. If none of these options are up, it could be that we haven't set those view options under the MUSE option area. The only one that I'm going to leave off is the grid overlay. If I turn that on, it just shows us where our working grid is. Leave that off. Now let's go and add some copy so that we can get a reference. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the type tool, and I'm going to click and drag out a box element over here and just enter the copy that I want for the title of my web page. I'm going to go ahead and scale that up. I'm using the Command-Shift-Greater-Than key, which many of you will recognize from InDesign or Quark or Illustrator or even Photoshop as the hotkey for scaling up selected type. You could use the options bar, not a problem. I'm also going to center justify that and snap it in a little more carefully to the upper right corner. Alright, now my plan is to add some numbers and some anchors and show how this website can be worked with. So what I'm going to do is go right out with the type tool and just go ahead and enter a giant 1. And again, the 1 is just representing the first anchor point on the site. And so I'm going to go ahead and use that. I'm going to just scale that, and then what I'll do is I'll copy that over and over again to get my other numbers. Not too bad. I'm going to just place that somewhere around here. Even though a 0 is really the top of the site, what I want to do is actually put a 0 in there. This is going to reflect like sending us back home. And so I'm going to put that right at the top of the page. I'm also going to move all of these in alignment so that they're aligned. I'm going to keep copying this and duplicating it. So I'm switching over to the type tool and just changing the number. Then holding down Option, I'll get the double pointer, drag out another copy. Whenever you need to copy an element, that's your tool. And I'm just going to go ahead and enter a 3 here. I should have room. 1, 2, 3 plus the 0, 4. I'm going to try to add one more. And let's just grab the item tool. Again, Option. And I'm going to bring it down to about here. This is closer to the bottom. Then what I'll do is I'll shove these into a better alignment. Now that one needs to go over here. I'm going to Command minus to shrink my windows down. I'm going to use the Shift down arrow to scrub that down to where I believe it should go, and just spread these out kind of uniquely. Highlight all of them, and then I'm going to visit the Align option. The Align option comes up over here. I'm just going to hit that and distribute these. Let's kind of distribute these off their center. Actually, this is what I want to do. Distribute them off of the vertical axis. That looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to hold down Shift and go down arrow on all of them. Well, they're not all adjusting. Apparently I can't do that. So I'm just going to leave them as they are because I think they're not too bad to begin with. Let's just deselect all those and then zoom back in and place some anchors. So to begin with, we wanted to set some copy. This will be copy reflecting your topic, whatever your topic might be. Now what I want to do is I want to place some anchors along the way, and I want to make sure that my anchors are named properly. So what I'm going to do is use this icon on the options bar that looks like an anchor. It is an anchor, to bring up the anchor gun. So I click on it, and then what I'm interested in doing is positioning the anchors exactly where I want the web browser to surf. And so I want this top of page, so to speak, to come up. So this will be 0, and I'm going to name it 0 using all lowercase characters, no spaces, none of those comic book swear characters, because this name is actually going to be entered into our code. We're not wanting it to be giving special commands to server software or browser software, so we want to make sure it's all lowercase, code sensitive type. Alright, so I'm going to click OK, grab that anchor gun, make another anchor near the 1, and that's what I'm going to call that one. And let's just use the space bar to pan, bring up number 2, same thing, anchor, bring in number 2. Logically naming these is going to be helpful. I have seen some people put ambiguous names if they're anchors, and it doesn't seem to make sense. So to drive the point home, using 1, 2, 3, and 4 gives us a clear understanding of what we're working with. Alright, so I've entered the 4 anchors, and these are actually browser link areas, so the browser will surf to these areas. And now there's a little less room between 1 and 0 than there is between all the other ones, but this will give me a good flow, and you should be able to see how the anchors work. So now under the window, I want to bring up the widgets library. In the widgets library, you'll see all kinds of controls over things, and what I've got going on here is the option for menu. And so what I'm going to do is go to a menu. I'm going to choose the horizontal menu, but you can use any menu that you're interested in working with, a vertical menu if you want a vertical control unit. But I'm going to grab the horizontal, and I'm just going to drag it out towards the top up here. Now what I'm interested in doing is manually adjusting this, and so the options for this comes up, and right now it's telling me it's going to build the menu off of, if I highlight where I'm looking, the top level pages. Well, I only have 1 page, so I want to switch this to manual. When I do that, it gives me the ability to name the thing, and so what I'm going to do is head out here, click again, and mine into it. So we'll call this drilling in. When you click on an object with the select tool, you can click to edit that individual object. When you click again, you'll get the object, the next level of control, so to speak, where you can actually add elements. And this is what I want to do. I want to add enough links here for the 4. Well, I'm going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I actually have 5. That I want to add, so I'm going to add all of them. And we can go in and set the anchors for each of these. And so what I'm going to be doing next is the linking. And so what I'm interested in doing, and actually it is right here, setting of the name. I do have the power to change the different rollover states, so I can show how the site was anchored, or how the menu, I should say, appears as you drive it. I'm also going to pin this. I'm going to pin this to the top of our site. So again, to do that properly, you click once on the menu item, and then choose the option on the options bar called pin. You can pin it to the upper left, pin it to the top, pin it to the upper right. That would overlay this text area, so I'm not sure I want to do that. You can also pin text areas. So perhaps I want that to flow left and right with the browser window. I can pin that over to the right. All other content is going to be static and placed out there, not likely to you want it to stay put, you want it to follow us around. Right, and so now let's go back to the menu items and then name each of these. I'm going to name this first one 0. Now here we actually enter the name that we're interested in the button to appear as, and so I'm going to use a capital or all caps if you wanted to. The special spelling is not required here because these are objects that we're going to be viewing. They're not necessarily program sensitive. There we go. So we don't have to follow our naming convention, so to speak, on that. Now we just have to link them and then test this thing out. We could test right now, but before we test, get into the habit of saving the site. I haven't saved the site, but I'm going to right now. I'm going to save the site as, go to my desktop where I have this site ready to work. Here it is, and there's the anchor site. And I'm going to call this using _anchors.com, just like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and save that. That's going to have an extension of .site. That's the website name that I've given it. And now we're back, and before we browse and check things out, we haven't set any links yet. Always save your file, because when we do what I'm about to do now, preview site in browser, we're asking the program to populate a web browser with content, and this is often a time when things get messed up or that freezes the software. And so just to make sure that's right. Now I see I'm overlapping. I should probably tuck this up a little higher. I don't want this to be so low. And I can see the numbers are there. So it's working. I'm going to just close it, and then I see that one adjustment that I can make. I'm just going to move it up, and that should work. And we'll just double check that that happened. I didn't save it that time, but look, it's pretty good. I could move it all the way over to the left. I think I will. So I'm going to close that and scrub this into the upper left corner, just like that. Right now, to configure each of these, I'm going to click and click again and create a hyperlink here. Shouldn't say hyperlink, it's just a link because it's not going outside of the website. But I want this first link to take me to that first anchor. And I'm going to go to the second one. So I click on it so that I have the pluses happening like that. And here's where I can add a link, and that's going to be 1. So I match, here's 1. I match the proper link. Here's 2. And here's number 3. And the last one, 4. Now I've got all these working. If I want to change the states, I click once, click again. I see the different states. In the menu, they'll all change universally. So what I'm going to do is change the color of that first site, that first link. It's right now gray. So what I'm going to do is just pick a lovely color out of my menu here. So let's go with a bright color. Why not? And then in the rollover state, I'm going to ask for it to be like red. Like, here we go. Good. The rollover states have to be performed one by one, but they look like they're all working. If you want them to be unique, you have to change them. I want the whole menu to reflect the same kind of logic. So let's get back into it. Let's go to mouse down or active. Active is where I want to see gray, or gray turn to green. Nice normal green. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is go back to the normal. It's hurting my eyes. So I'm thinking I'm going to change that to something richer. Nice and purple. There we go. Let's get the purple to be a little bit more on the manly scale. There we go. Now I'm talking a nice design for Roberto. I'm going to just tuck away this copy up here a little bit. I think we're good. I'm going to save my file, and I want to try out this without copy 5 anchored site for a single page site. Let's go down and check it out in the browser. Now, the reason why I don't check this in the design or the preview tab is that I've learned that that doesn't show everything, and honestly I wonder why it exists sometimes. If it doesn't have the power to show us what we've designed, I don't know why we're using it. And so I'm often using the file menu, preview, and browser. And now here's the 0 one, which is where we're pretty much at. It takes us to the kind of to the top. Here's number 1, moving the copy up. Here's number 2, moving the copy up. Here's number 3, and the only complaint I have is when I move this, it's adjusting my copy a little too high. And so number 4 doesn't bring it up high enough. 3 keeps it going, but it's under my menu. So it's working, but I need some adjustments. So what I'm going to do, close this down, go out here, and the first thing I want to do is drop my anchor down to accommodate for that menu. And I'm going to go to each of them and roughly do the same thing. I'm just going to use the arrow key and aim for where I'm interested in that page completing. The last one didn't scroll all the way up because the page ended, and so what I'm interested in doing there is probably just extending the page. But I could make a couple of adjustments. I could do the same thing I'm doing here. But I think what I'm interested in doing is just extending the page a little bit more. And sometimes the better way to do that is to shrink your site down so that you can see the whole thing in the menu. And then push it down and raise it up to where you want. I'm liking it. We'll go with that. Alright, now we should be able to save our file and we should get a little bit better performance. Alright, so now let's go back, preview this, and take a look at what we've got. Here's the 0 page up to the top. Here's the 1 page up to the top. 2, they're kind of hiding, but you can see they're going to the top. Perhaps I want that to be exposed. What I could do is just quickly grab these. I'm going to use the shift up arrow. I'm a little quicker. Position our copy above the number in the amount of our menu. And so you can see sort of how these can be adjusted. We'll go one more click there. All right. Looks good. Now I'm going to save the site one more time. Love to save the site before we go to preview because we run into the chances that we could have problems. 1's fitting pretty good. 2's pretty good. Everything's working a lot better now with some position. I don't think the link should probably go up a little bit for 1 to accommodate that. Let's fix that. Go 2 more. Save the site. Wait for that. Preview the site in the browser. I'm just going to hit refresh once to make sure I've got fresh copy. There's the 1. Looking pretty good. There's number 2. There's number 3. There's number 4. 4 and 3 looks a little high on the scale, but I'm liking it. One thing is people can now surf the copy and you can see how the website scrubs between our different topic points. You can see the active one is green Doesn't turn green until the anchor lands. I like it. I think it's working pretty good. So finish the project by adding your copy and content. You're going to have more than the 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to have content from your first presentation. But that's our single page anchored site. So focus on making one page, effective menus, effective nav using anchors. Very good.